Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hey, hello. My name's Meg and we do crafty things here. So if you like crafty things, please consider subscribing. Right now, it's predominantly friendship bracelets, but within the next couple of weeks, people, we're gonna start doing some different crafts because I'm starting to get tired of the friendship bracelets. Not gonna lie, we'll still do some friendship bracelet stuff, but we're gonna break it up a bit. So if you're a returning subscriber, holy smokes, you guys have been crushing it. In the last 2 months, I have gotten 100 new subscribers each month. That's insane, guys. We're over 400 subscribers now. So if you are a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing and tuning in to another video. So this has been a requested video and it's to do with double loops. I didn't realize this was a thing that so many people, I don't know, I guess struggle with. So today's tutorial, I'm gonna show you guys 3 different ways that I do double loops. And when I say double loops, I mean starting a bracelet with more than 1 loop on the top of it. So we'll jump in to the easiest method and the method I learned first. And this can be done with a variety of basic patterns. Or separate to 1 start. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut your strings. So for me, I'm going to do a double arrowhead pattern, or not double arrowhead, sorry. That's what it was called in the book I learned from. That's why I call it arrowhead. But a double chevron pattern is what most people call it. So I'm going to do a double chevron pattern. So I've got my strings, the exact same strings cut for each of these loops. I've already tied them. This is just basic loops. Haven't done anything fancy. And I'm gonna tape them to my journal here. And basically, it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're pinning or you're taping, you just wanna try and get your big knots lined up side by side. But for this one, there can be a little bit of a space. You just want them to be at the same level, like pin-wise. It's just gonna make your life easier. So I'm gonna go ahead, tape those down. And this is what I call the separate to together method because we're going to actually start this separate. Because this is a chevron pattern, and any pattern that can go into a chevron, so a chevron pattern, like a diamonds pattern, anything that has a chevron in it, you could technically do the start for. So I'm gonna lay out my strings how I would for an arrowhead pattern. Just looking at one set of your strings, whether you wanna start with the left or the right, whatever, I'm gonna start with the right because why not? And we're gonna do a full color pass of chevron. Okay, so I'm not even connecting anything at this point. I just have my 2 sets of string cut and I'm just tying a regular chevron pattern here. I also had a question. This person might not even be watching this video, but I had a question on my Shark Alpha tutorial where one of you guys had said that my bracelet looked a lot bigger than yours, and if there was a reason for that. And I had mentioned that string could play a big role in that. And to give you a prime example of that, I'm just gonna finish this row here. To give you a prime example of that, I'm going to compare this right here that I am making. Now this has 4 colors. But this is completely different string. This is from like my older string. And if we look at the bracelets on my wrist, okay, this has 5 colors. Or no, it doesn't, it has 4 as well. Okay, so this bracelet has 4 colors. It is a chevron. And if we look and compare these two, I'll zoom you guys in a bit so you can see a bit better. Look how much bigger, wider this bracelet is compared to this one. So your string can have a big effect on the thickness, like how wide your bracelets are ending up. It just has to do with the string. It's really, it's not like you're tying wrong or anything, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys that. Take the opportunity while I was here and had a comparison right ready for you. Okay, I'm actually gonna leave you guys zoomed in like this, I think, because I think you can see a lot better. And it's not a tutorial, so you guys don't really need to see how I'm knotting. Okay, I've done one color pass on this side. Now I'm gonna set those strings aside, and I'm gonna pull out this one, and I'm gonna set my strings up the exact same order, because that's why I want it. You could do a different order if you wanted half your bracelet, or you wanted the colors to be staggered or something. Okay, so now I have done a color pass on both sides. I'm going to bring this other side back in, and now we're going to connect this. So it's starting in separate, and now I'm going to connect it. I'm going to take my 2 center strings and tie them together. And because I lined up my loops at the top, these big knots, my color passes are the same length, so we don't have any issues here, and you can carry on now with your doubled up pattern. Okay, there you are. You have your first start. Now you've got a bracelet that has 2 loops on it. And I like this method because I think it looks nice and there's some flexibility at the top of it. And at the end, you can just stop connecting in the middle, do a color pass, and it looks even before you go to your ties. So there is option 1, just basic loops, unfinished loops, separate to together. Let's look at another method. Okay, so maybe for whatever reason you don't like that kind of start, you want to start your bracelet right off the hop. Again, I'm just doing basic loops here. If you wanted to do separate, like finished loops, you are certainly able to. The main thing is you want the bottom of your knots or your finished loop to line up. So even if your loops are different sizes, that is the main thing. I don't know if this is going to stop it. This is going to hold or not on this textured surface. It's not looking great, but we're going to try still because the journal moves around a lot. I don't know how it's going to go, guys. So again, maybe your pattern doesn't allow that, and that's why you're not doing a separate to the start. Maybe you just don't like the way it looks. So literally you can line up your 2 loops, like I said, as long as the bottom of your knots or the bottom of your loops, the bottommost point of whatever you have done up here is lined up, then you can start tying. So I'll do a double diamonds and X's for this right off the hop. So obviously this is easier if your pattern is a doubled up pattern. So you literally have the repeating strings, but otherwise just look at your pattern and see what colors need to be used or placed on which side to determine which colors go in which bunch of strings. So like if I didn't have any purple, if you don't have any purple on this side, on like your right hand side, don't put your purple string on the right hand side loop. Put both your purple strings over here and whatever color isn't over here, over there until they're even. Okay, so I have everything set out here now. Let's jump into this. And because our knots are at the same place, everything we knot should be, if your tension and gauge and everything is good, should be even, coming out at the same level, so you shouldn't have any problems that way. Now to finish the chevron, I'm gonna need to connect these two. And this is gonna be the trickiest part, and it's not that difficult. So you want your loops side by side as they are, not way apart. Don't put them way apart, you want them side by side. So I'm going to take my inner strings from both sides of these bracelets, because right now, 2 loops, they look like separate bracelets, and I'm going to tie my knots together. So you just want to pull until it's tight, and they probably will end up completely against each other. And this, like I said, is going to be the trickiest part. This is also why I like doing the separate to together method if I can, because it reduces having to do this. So I've done the first half of my knot. I'm going to pin it with my finger while I pull this back down. That just keeps it as tight as I possibly can keep it. I'm gonna tie it right up to my finger and then let it slip off over the top. And now you can see I have a knot that is joining my 2 loops dead together. So I can continue to do the other side of this starting chevron. And before someone asks, what about alphas? You do the exact same thing. Split your bass strings in half, tie them in 2 loops, as you normally do, or 2 strands, or however you want to do your ties. And just watch when you get to the point where you're tying your knotting string around the first string of the next loop, that you tie it tight. And once you've done that once, you won't have to do that weird knot again in your bracelet, but I will do another row of this so you guys can see how I did that again. And you may have a way to do it that works better for you. It's all trial and error. You may find that what I do doesn't work for you and you have an easier method. That's cool too. So this time around, the first thing I'm gonna do is that knot in the middle. So this is how I would do it for that first one, and that's again just to show you guys what it looks like. So I've got my 2 strings. We're pretending they're completely separate, like it's the very first row. And I do my first knot and I pull it tight so that my 2 strings are completely together. But now if I let that go, they're gonna automatically try to separate. So I'm going to pin it with another finger, whether that's your ring finger, your, whatever. You're gonna pin it. I'm gonna pin it with my pinky. I'm gonna zoom you guys out a little bit so you can see. So I've got my bass string, I'm holding it in my hand, I'm holding it tight, and I'm pinning the knot with my pinky. And then I'm gonna come down and make my 4. And I'm gonna pull this up so it's tight around my pinky. And then I'm going to slide it up over my pinky and slowly pull my pinky out so that I can keep that as tight together as possible. But again, you only have to do that for that very first connecting knot at the top. I'm just gonna do the diamond in the middle here. And then we'll move on to the last method I use. And of course there are tons of different loops and decorative ways that people start and end their bracelets. So these are just the 3 that I use, but it gives you the basic gist. Like, there isn't much to it. You pretty much split your strings in half and just tie them as close together as possible. Okay, well, you guys can see how it is all connected now. Nothing that exciting, but there you have it. That is a connected right from the top, double from the start loop. And this next one is going to be an alpha bracelet, and this is going to be a connected finished loop start. So I've taken my bass strings, I have split them into 2 groups. I'm gonna set one set aside, and I'm going to take my really long knotting string, and it's going to be folded in thirds basically. So I'm holding this at the point of pretty much the first third of my string. So one side is really, really long. It has like 2/3 of my string on it, and the other side is shorter. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up, our first little packet of strings here, bass strings, and we're going to hold them at the midpoint so we have a loop here, and we're going to put our string where we are holding it in a loop through like so, and then pull the loose ends through the loop to create a lark's head knot. Okay, so again, your bass strings are folded in half, and your knotting string is folded with 2/3 of your string to one side and 1/3 on the other. So now I'm gonna split this because now we have a knot here. I'm gonna split my knotting string, and I'm gonna see which side has the shorter string, which side has the longer string. Okay, so my right hand side has the longer string, so I'm gonna deal with the left hand side first. So because if we look here, we've got a knot on this side over here. That's where the bump is. On this side of the string, I'm going to do a forwards knot. And again, there's no loop or anything, so we're just holding this in our hands. We're gonna do a forwards knot, like so, and then you can see that puts a loop on this side. So now I just want this to be straight. I don't want it to be Chinese staircase or anything. So now I'm going to do a backwards knot on this side, and that puts another bump on this side. And I'm going to alternate back and forth until I have half the size of the loop I want done. This is kind of a finicky method, so I don't use this a lot. If I'm doing finished loops, I'll just do like finished completely separate loops and then line them up side by side just like I would for the last 2 methods. And I just knot, line up the bottom of my loops and knot, just like before. So generally, I don't really have a magic number for this. Obviously, if your pattern has more strings in it, it's gonna be thicker. Your knot at the bottom of your ties is going to be thicker. You're gonna want a bigger loop. So just go until you feel it's appropriate for the size of strings you have. And I learned this technique years ago off of a Russian website that I actually had to use like a Chrome plugin to translate the whole page. And I don't remember what the website is, and I wouldn't even know how to go about finding it again. So credit to that tutorial, but I really don't know the website anymore or the tutorial that I learned it from. So I apologize, I can't pass that information on to you guys. So now, okay, I feel like that's pretty good for half of a loop. I'm gonna go with that. I'm going to now flip to the other side. So now I'm working with my long knotting string, and I'm going to do the same thing for the same amount of knots. This is a color changing string. If you also watched that last video, you'll know that I talked about, sorry, I'm not even in view for you guys. If you did watch that last video, you know I'm not really big on color changing string. But one of my friends gave me a small pack of like ombre strings, and I just haven't even used ombre strings in a long time. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give them another shot. And that's what this is all about. You know, you can be really good at your craft, but someone once told me people can consider you the best at something, but there will always be someone who is better in another aspect of the craft than you are. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. You should just always try to improve yourself. But people are just good at different things. Some people are good at coming up with techniques and thinking of those things. Some people are good at just knotting the patterns. Some people are good at making patterns. I suck at making patterns. That's why I don't make a lot of patterns. I'm just not good at it. So just don't feel discouraged when you're like, I just can't seem to get the hang of this thing. Well, keep practicing at it and just know, like, you might be better at another aspect of the craft than someone else. You know? Don't get discouraged. 6, 9, 12. Okay. So I think that's gonna be pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of fold this in half a little bit here. I can see like that's gonna be the size of my loop. Okay, I like that. So now, still having my long string on the right hand side here, we are going to connect in our second loop. So getting my other packet of bass strings here, I already have them folded in half, ready to go. We are going to connect them. So keeping this folded in half, we're gonna go a little bit below the midpoint here. And we're going to hold the packets together like so. And you're just going to knot onto it. I'm doing this on the table in hopes that pinning it down here, we will have better luck. You know what? I'm actually gonna tape this just so you guys can see. Normally I do this all in my hands, but my hands are gonna be in the way. Okay, so I've got my second pack of strings in here. I've got my green string dead in the middle. And my first step is going to be make a forwards knot. Okay, and you want it to be as tight to this other loop as possible. Okay, so we've got them as close as possible. And now we're going to do another forwards knot here just to connect it. There we are. Now they're connected. I'm going to pull the tape up off this, and we're going to do the exact same thing we did for the last loop. Okay, so we look, and because of how we connected, we can't really see a lump on either side to indicate which way we just tied. So now these two are connected. These two are connected. We've got the left-hand side of our first loop connecting into the right-hand side. We've got the right-hand and the left-hand side of our new loop that we're just starting connected together. Now you're just forwards, backwards for the whole length of this loop. So ideally, you're gonna try and do it for just the same amount of knots that you did your other loop for. And again, none of our loops are closed at this point in time, so we are just doing this in our hands. And the reason we split our knotting string is kind of evident now, because the one side has to do a lot more knotting. Your strings will be extremely off kilter if you just folded them in the center and went from there, you know? And you want them to be relatively even. It's gonna be easier when you're knotting to have an even amount of string. You don't have to worry about running out of one side right away. Okay, so now I think they're about the same amount of knots, so I'm just gonna bend this and we see that, yep, they're the same size. So I've actually just got these ones a little bit more pulled apart. So now we're going to pin this down, or in my case, tape, because we are at the table. And I'm just going to tape it. As best I can to make it even. And then I'm just gonna do the first couple lines across here. This is for an upcoming tutorial that you guys will see. It's gonna be a big one. It's gonna be a couple weeks away yet, so don't get super excited. But it's gonna be a big one. And I'm excited about it and not excited about it because it's going to take me a long time to record. So what would you guys prefer? Do you guys prefer like the smaller patterns that you can use as decorations and stuff, or keychains, that sort of thing? Or would you prefer to get one big alpha tutorial, like a month sort of thing? Okay, and now we need to connect this first loop. I'm gonna grab a bass string that's naturally falling on the inner side of the loop. And you want to do basically the same thing we did for connecting that last method. We're gonna tie it tight. I'm going to pin it with my finger, come down, and tie the forwards knot. Tighten it around my finger, and slowly pull it up and over while pulling my finger out. And it looks like we got a string caught up in there, but it's okay. There we go. And then continue on, and you'll do that for the other side of the loop as well. And I know everyone likes finished loops, but the main reason I don't do them is because they're so time consuming. And realistically, are you looking at the ties of your bracelet that much? Everyone wants to look at the pattern. No one really cares what the ties look like. So if I'm feeling very patient, I will do the finished knots. Or if it's a bracelet I know I really want to wear or something, I'll do finished knots. But normally, I'm gonna kick it back to basics, girl. I like just loops and braids. What kind of finish do you like? Do you like teardrop finish? Do you guys like a straight start? Do you like, you know, ties on either end? Do you like a loop and a tie? Do you have a specific kind of braid or something that you like your ties to be? Let me know down below. I try to mix it up and try different kinds of braids. I'll do twisted ties, fishtail braids, regular braids. I'll do ties and ties, loops and ties, finished loops with ties, finished loops with a buckle pattern. Lots of things. And so because our loops are connected, this part in the center is really easy, which is awesome because all your strings are essentially together in the middle. And now we're at our connecting knot. So I'm going to take the first string from this side. We're going to do the same thing we've just done. We're going to do our knot. I'm going to pin it with my finger. Get the bass string out of the way here. Pin it with my finger. Do my forward knot, or sorry, backwards knot because I'm working right to left. And pull it tight. You don't have to pull it around your finger. You could do what I did if you're able to slip the string underneath. It's just easier if you pin it with a finger. So now everything is connected. I can manipulate this row of knots because it has just been tied. I can manipulate it. I can pull some of my red strings a little bit so that they're not, visible. I can manipulate my loops a little bit to pull these down to cover those up as much as possible. Play with them until they're relatively even. And then you can carry on doing your bracelet. So as a recap, here are the 3 kinds of double loop starts that I work with. There is the separate to connected method, where you get 2 little flappy flaps here and your loops, whatever they may be, and you can do the same at the bottom, 2 little flappy flaps, and then your ties, your braids on each end. This is my preferred method if I am able to do it, if the pattern allows it. It's easy, it looks good, and I don't know, I like the symmetry of it, how you can split it on both ends. I just like the way that looks. The next method was our connected from the beginning method. And that looks like this. And that is straight connected from the very first row of knots. Unlike this one where you have the separate little start, and then we have your connected loops. You can of course do this for a normal pattern as well, but I wanted to have at least one alpha in here so someone didn't go, but what about alpha bracelets? It's literally the exact same. So once you do another line here, everything will kind of even out, it'll be straight. And yeah, again, you can manipulate your knots and stuff, but that'll give you finished loops side by side with a flat bottom. So there you have it. 3 different ways to start your bracelets with more than one loop. You can do this for multiple loops. If you want a third one on here, do another arrowhead pass and then connect on this side before you do this side of the chevron. You can do the same with this one, pin your knot and not have your cap pull it off the table, pin your knot and pull it tight right at the beginning. And you can add another one on doing the exact same method we did here for as many loops as you need. So there you go, guys. I hope this helped you in your bracelet making journey, that you're able to make some wider bracelets and not have your strings all scrunched up in one spot, which is really the main benefit of having multiple loops at the beginning of your bracelet. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and it was helpful. If you do have any questions, please leave them down below and I will try and help you guys out as much as I can. Sometimes it's difficult if I don't have a picture though. So if you guys are following me on Instagram, I'll throw that name up on the screen here. If you're following me on Instagram and you want to send me a picture if you're having a problem, I will definitely look at it and try and help you out. And in some cases, a picture gives me a better idea of what you're actually talking about. So don't be afraid to message me, whether that's on Bracelet Book or Instagram, or I think they're doing away with YouTube messages, but leave a note in the comments. I will try and help you guys the best that I can. So until next time, guys, I will see you all then. Bye.